Let's let's check out what they're going to talk about here.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. OG here, and we are getting ready to dig in to the best insight you will have on FC26, featuring feedback from Inception FC, the legend himself, one of the most, if not the most knowledgeable FC player there is. Now, this is way more in depth than what I call the highlights of the new gameplay, right? They call it the gameplay deep dive, but that video we went over is a glorified highlight video. These pitch notes dive into everything, not to mention, like I said, having Inception give his feedback, I will give you mine, and you will have exactly what you need to know regarding this next iteration of FC, whether you're on the fence about buying the game or you just want to know everything so you can mentally prepare for what's to come. So, without further ado, let's get into the pitch notes featuring the legend himself, Inception FC.
FC26, dribbling and movement make players more agile and responsive on and off the ball. Goalkeepers make them more consistent and intelligent. Defending, reduce the quality of balls that bounce back to the opponent. Passing and shooting make it more responsive and improve available options. Attacking and defensive positioning make better runs and provide more support. Physicality make it more reliable to protect and shield the ball. First touches and control the ball. Improve the control of trapping the ball. Online and general gameplay responsiveness. Oh, now you guys are doing that nowadays, huh?
So there you have it. Inception goes over the overview. That's everything we will dig into. Some interesting stuff there, but there's also a lot of filler words. For instance, we don't need to go into like the numeric values or the equations as to how EA Sports came up with certain things, because it really doesn't mean anything to us, right? We will go over all of the pertinent stuff, and then I'll give you the cliff notes of some of the what Inception says, just words, right? Really doesn't mean anything. Some of it we just have to play the game. Other things they do give good examples of, whether it's through video or explanation. So at the end of this, I will make sure you guys have a full outlook as to what to expect from FC26. You will know as much as anybody regarding how the game will be. So whether you're on the fence about buying the game or you just want to be mentally prepared for what to expect, we will have you covered. So let's get into it, starting with dribbling.
Dribbling and movement. One core fundamental is how players move, both with and without the ball. Our goal has always been to make players on the pitch feel agile, responsive. So for FC26, we narrowed it on the community's feedback to provide dribbling. And FC26, dynamic dribbling is a new way to give you better control with increased responsiveness and more consistent outcomes. In order to achieve this, we made the changes below to our dribbling system. Okay, so in FC26, dribbling has received a significant amount of changes to improve responsiveness and fluidity. Dribble touch intervals. Retuned how close the player keeps the ball to themselves when dribbling. The interval between dribble touches varies between competitive and authentic. Player height. Adjusted animation consistency and speed for players based on heights to balance the performance between tall and short players. Foot preference. Adjusted dribbling, foot preference logic and animation branching logic to allow for more responsive ball control dribbling animations. Reevaluated and retuned our dribbling animation library to ensure that consistency, speed, and responsiveness for dribbling were standard across the board. Animation transition and branching have been improved for increased responsiveness and to diminish the feeling of being locked into animations. Jog dribble, increased speed of jog dribbling alongside improved logic for ball direction when dribbling to achieve more consistency in their desired speed. Effort dribble touches, effort touch animations now triggered during the drastic dribble turns to ensure faster and authentic turns.
So as you watch this video, you will notice that left stick dribbling will be insane this year. The sharpness of the in and out cuts is ridiculous. Vastly improved from last year. And another thing that will be vastly improved, in case you didn't catch it, the bigger players that are typically clunky on the ball, right? Even if in real life they are excellent on the ball, and even if they have excellent dribbling in game, right? If you didn't have a certain body type in the past, you just were borderline unusable, or definitely how you the good dribbling didn't translate, right? However, now they're adjusting that, not only with the physicality, right? We're going to go into it more, but there's more shielding when you're dribbling, but also just the bigger players being more usable. If you're good at dribbling, you're good at dribbling. The size shouldn't matter. So you better believe players like the featured icon Ibrahimovic, who you know played a big factor in them making this adjustment, right? You couldn't have this insane featured icon that was well known for being great on the ball despite being huge. You couldn't have him clunky on the ball, right? They've done it in the past, and it just ruins legendary players. It ruins, current superstars. And players like Cruz, right? Spent the majority of his career when he was one of the best midfielders in the game, unusable, right? Certain bigger strikers, Holland in the past, unusable. They started to make adjustments there, but now they're saying with the physical dribbling as well as these adjustments, you can see here just the general left stick is going to be so much more responsive, so much more quickness, quick cuts. It's going to be insane. I can't wait to utilize it. You can just see from this smaller example. Sometimes it's hard to tell from the little examples they give us in these videos. With this, you can absolutely tell left stick dribbling is going to be vastly improved, and I can't wait to try out the dribbling with the bigger, typically clunky players.
Okay, so yeah, they removed the agile dribbling. Good people, movement. We heard feedback that players felt sluggish and heavy, especially when changing directions or when chasing down the ball. Our goal with FC26 is to make all players more agile and able to accelerate more explosively in any direction, so we can continue to tune the relative pace of players to ensure that the fastest players feel like the quickest ones on the pitch. Here's what we changed to achieve this: more agility, explosive sprint, increased player agility and explosiveness in every direction. Run styles, adjusted runs to be more natural and explosive to reflect the pace of an authentic football match. Attacker versus defender speed, improve the speed differentiation between attackers versus defenders to achieve an improved balance between the two.
So you see here just another example of the sharpness improved, right? This is the FC25 cuts without the ball, and you'll see vastly improved with FC26. There's just more intent, more sharpness, and you can tell that's the goal. More intent, more sharpness, more responsiveness. That's across the board, including what we will go over later, the responsiveness as it pertains to the inconsistent gameplay where the players feel heavy, laggy, the game's delayed. So they will attempt to tie this all together to make a vastly improved experience there. We will see if they accomplish this. They will also be going back to just 3 run types, right? You have lengthy, controlled, and explosive. Now, they break down all the numeric values here. That's where I am talking about just the filler words that you don't have to read this. You're not going to remember it, because when you go into game or you go into Footbin, they'll tell you if a player is lengthy, explosive, or controlled. Now, if you remember, that's how they started, and then they went to like 6 or whatever it was, where there's controlled lengthy, controlled explosive, and they had the players across the pitch racing down the field, and there was a clear advantage for some. So in order to improve that, they went back to the original 3, which is absolutely a good idea.
The changes: jockey, improved jockey movement to be more agile and responsive. That's really important, obviously, but I've already seen that before. New jockey animation to improve maneuverability and feel more grounded. Turns, improved animations for all types of turns, drastic turns, swivel turns, etc. Well, your jockey has to be good, because if your left stick is that responsive, imagine if your defending is the way that it is right now. Defending as the way that it is right now, even with jockey plus, is garbage. So
this is a huge improvement, and obviously, as Inception said, since they made the dribbling sharper, right, with sharper left stick, you had to improve the jockey and other defensive aspects as well, but especially the jockey, because otherwise defenders would have had no chance with that more responsive left stick. So this is huge, but not only for that reason, because the defensive mechanics as a whole need to be upgraded, right? They did a good job going away from the AI nonsense we had to deal with for years, where you were actually rewarded for not defending. You were rewarded when you let your AI do all the work. So they went away from that. However, all of the missed tackles, all of the ping pong nonsense where you're actually punished for reading a channel and making an interception, or reading a dribbling channel and making a good tackle, most of the time the ball just bounces back to the attacker. But spoiler alert, they absolutely do address this, so we will see how they do with that. However, this is a good start to defensive improvements without a doubt. Let's see what else they improve for FC26.
Well, I mean, it has to be an improvement, because with the dribbling being like that, it's going to be kind of crazy. We received a lot of feedback on the goalkeepers, especially regarding their positioning, the place where they deflect the ball, and how they look when doing so. Our goal with goalkeepers is to make them more consistent and reliable, reducing the frustration they can cause, and improving the balance of skill versus authenticity. Goalkeeper fundamentals in FC26, goalkeepers received several improvements, such as how they handle deflections, how they position themselves, and even their decision making, all with the goal of reducing frustration while staying authentic to football. Deflection control added a new level of control for save deflections to significantly reduce the amount of deflections going back to opponents. Most deflections will go out of bounds towards teammates or to open space away from the opponents. Good, because it's stupid that a person does a low percentage strike and gets rewarded for it. It's really dumb. Goalkeeper senses refined goalkeeper ability to read shot trajectories to better reflect real world save efforts and shot deflection or detection. Technical improvements, improved base systems for goalkeeper handling. Cool. That's a good direction. If you do a low percentage strike, and to be fair, it looks like you gotta have to use you're gonna have to use precision shooting. Maybe I have to get used to it for FC25 just so I don't have to take a while to get used to it for 26. Because if they're removing time finishing, you're going to have to use precision, because if it's unassisted, it's probably going to be garbage. We'll see, though, right? It all depends when it comes out.
So this is absolutely huge news, right? And I'm actually a fan of it. They are removing timed finishing, as you heard there, which is, if you don't know, if you're on the fence about coming over from eFootball, it is part of the dynamic shooting where you essentially can control how well you strike the ball. Imagine you're striking the ball in real life, whether it's finesse shot or you're striking with your laces and you want to get a good clean curl on the ball or a good clean rope and you strike it perfectly. That's like what green time shooting is. Now, I'm happy they are removing it because ratty players would find that certain angle where goalkeepers just rarely saved the shot, and they would just ensure that they green timed it every time, which would give them essentially a free goal when they couldn't break you down, right? In the past, it's been like 30-yard power shots or that certain finesse shot from 25, 30 out at that certain angle that they would just do over and over and over. And it also allowed them to use assisted shooting because they could just green time every time and give themselves a super high percentage chance to score, even on typically lower percentage chances. Now, what they've done is added low driven when you press the shoot button for the second time instead of green time finishing, which means if you want more accuracy, if you want more control of your shooting, you have to use precision shooting. Now, you've had to use this in the pro events for the past few years, and that's all I use because it is actually a skill shooting that adds a skill gap, right? When you practice it, you are rewarded more than assisted shooting. However, many players, because of green time finishing, would still use assisted. Now that green time's gone, like Inception says, they're going to have to use precision shooting. That's if they want those certain shots that they've always taken to be as accurate as they were before, if they want to score as much as they were before. However, it is much more difficult. But I love the idea that you still have options, right? If you press that shoot button the second time, instead of going high, where the goalie will typically parry it, you can go low. So you still have the ability to aim while you're striking the ball all the way until your foot is about to strike the ball. So if you see the goalie cheat left as you're swinging through on whatever shot you're taking, you can then move your shot from the left, to the right. So that ability stays the same, and you can get even more precise aiming when you use precision shooting over assisted shooting, as well as now you have the ability to aim low and turn it into a low driven, which is an excellent change to dynamic shooting, and it takes away something that rats were able to exploit. On top of that, they've also improved goalkeepers and took away something else that rats would many times exploit, which is the dreaded rebound goal, right? There's so many times where players will take low percentage shots knowing it's not going to go in, but hoping that the ball will be parried into the onrushing attacker's path so they can just tap it in. And a lot of times, more often than there should be, this would work. Now, that's not the case. As you see on screen, the goalkeepers are much better at parrying the ball into safe areas where you can rush and get it. If the opponent rushes and gets it, so be it, but they still have to work to score a goal. Now, if the goalkeeper realistically would parry it and they're going to get a rebound, then that's that. It's going to happen sometimes. However, it was just happening unrealistically, right? That's what they've improved, and that's all we can ask for. And besides the improved pairing on rebounds, I'm impressed with the overall changes to the keepers. Now, we've seen this before, right? And goalkeepers are a tough area for any game. UFL, eFootball, FC, they are either overpowered or they don't save anything, right? It's just how it is. However, In this case, EA Sports has definitely made strides in the right direction to make goalkeepers more realistic, which absolutely is important because the goalkeepers play into the overall realism of a football simulator. If you have unrealistic goalkeepers, it leads to unrealistic goals. So, excellent job. If we are to base it, which all we can do right now is base it on these clips, base it on these explanations. Now we just have to hope that everything looks and plays as good as it seems in these pitch note clips. And last but not least, regarding goalkeepers, you now have the ability to be a goalkeeper within Rush, which is a good addition, and they made several others, which I think is important. I know a lot of people don't enjoy Rush as much. I would say, though, that if you're going to have objectives and things, which they do with regards to Rush, it would be a lot more fun, and it will be a lot more fun completing them with your friends and completing them in a mode that is just better to play. So hopefully those improvements are worthwhile.
Tackle outcomes, improved logic when stand or sliding tackle, tackling the ball to a teammate. Shot blocks added a new deflection control system to make blocked shots put the ball away from danger. Interceptions added a new deflection control system to try to keep possession or move the ball to a teammate when making an interception. Tackled opponents. Opponents will feel the effect of a tackle more severely when dispossessed of the ball by playing a realistic reaction after the tackle, thereby reducing the likelihood of them recovering the ball back right after getting successfully tackled.
So we addressed the jockeying improvements. Now we have the tackle back improvements for both interceptions and tackles themselves, which is absolutely huge. If you look at the clips, it's a nightmare watching these FC25 tackle backs. If you look at the FC26 clips, much improved.
Possession-based tackles. They talked about that in a previous year. Like, don't get me wrong, guys. Like, because this is all publicity to sell the new game, right? Because we've seen this before. Okay, they have talked about this before, where they're like, "Oh, your tackles." Like, it's honestly, to be honest, right? It's actually embarrassing that you show what FC25 is like, but you had pitch notes in the past that talked about more possession-based challenges, and you're still showing examples of a game that did not have possession-based challenges.
Now, I included this because it is a very important point. This is something that EA Sports has notoriously done, and other development companies do it too with other video games, right? Where they recycle new additions, right? New features that were already supposed to be new in the past. But if they actually added them in the past, they wouldn't be added now. Or they'll remove new features after a few years and then wait a few years and add them back. So the bottom line is this. We just have to wait and see if they truly fix the tackle backs, the interceptions that bounce back to the attackers. And hopefully if they do fix it, they actually keep it this time.
Tackle versus block when pressing stand tackle near the dribbler. About to take a shot, the defender will be more likely to try to tackle rather than block. Tackles from behind reduce the effectiveness of tackling from behind the dribbler. Tackle personality added more player personality for standing tackles. Players with low standing tackle attribute below 79 can only perform basic all standing tackle. Players with high standing tackle attributes 85 plus can perform all standing tackle animations.
So 2 big takeaways here. First off, this is just another huge defensive improvement. We talked about defensive mechanics as a whole needing to be improved, and so far, so good. This is part of that whole pinball attack where you could either dribble or pass incorrectly, right? Make mistakes and be rewarded because the ball would bounce off the defender when they made a tackle, or, like you see here, an interception, and then the attacker would essentially be rewarded with keeping the ball after they should have been stripped. Essentially, the defender should be rewarded when they make a good interception or tackle, and that will be the case now. And I also wanted you to note that players with 85 plus standing tackle will have access to all standing tackle animations. That's important because any type of defensive player, defender, midfielder, you don't want 84 below potentially with standing tackle. Otherwise, that could cost you in certain important instances where you would otherwise win the ball. 85 plus standing tackle is very important for your defensive players. Remember that.
Some of the strongest feedback we got on passing and shooting is that they can often feel sluggish, as well as that some shots or pass types are unbalanced. Our goal in FC26 is to improve the options available to players and ensure that shot or pass is as responsive as possible. Passing, pass responsiveness with our focus on core mechanics. We dedicated significant effort to ensuring passes, particularly first-time passes, are as responsive as possible. Passing angles, faster animations, passes behind. Okay, so increased animation coverage for 135, 180-degree passes, also allowing backheel passes to play contextually in these scenarios. First time 135, 180 through passes are now significantly less accurate. Good. Directed run related exploits, quick passes, optimized short distance, low power passes to prefer faster, more responsive animations with minimal wind up. Note that in competitive gameplay, first time pass accuracy is reduced despite being more responsive.
Okay, so as you watch the new improved passing, which essentially is just sharper, quicker, that basically summarizes the entirety of the passing improvements they made. It goes on for a while because they go through every pass. Through passes, lob through passes, crosses, on and on, but essentially just know that passing is going to be faster. It's supposed to be sharper, improved target finding, right? But we just have to play the game and see for ourselves. This is one of those things that in Inception's word is just words, right? Until we play the game, feel the passing ourselves, we won't truly know what was improved or not. Just expect faster passing, which, by the way, I disagree with. I feel like the passing is the main thing that makes the game feel what many say is arcadey instead of realistic. Now, I know some instances you can't go with realism because it doesn't make sense on the sticks. However, passing, I believe, is one of those areas where you absolutely not only can but should go more realistic. Use eFootball, for example. They have perfected the weight of the passing, not only that, but the weight of the players as well. So passing sequences always feel rewarding and realistic. Now, we can only hope that these changes bring FC to somewhat more realism.
To make shooting more fair and rewarding, we've enhanced responsiveness. Our goal for this is that when you ask your player to shoot, it happens quickly and as expected. Close range shots near the nets will use more reactive animations with minimal wind up. Yeah, the wind up is stupid. It allows the person's goalkeeper to be able to use manual goalkeeping, right, in a more responsive way, because you have to basically be an octopus and be cross-eyed to time your shot and then look at the goalkeeper at the same time.
So if you follow my channel, you see me talk about this all the time. In eFootball, believe it or not, the windup is worse. But either way, it is unrealistic, and I'm glad they addressed it for FC26, especially when you add in the inconsistent gameplay, which makes commands delayed, right? You go to shoot the ball, your player takes so long that by the time you get the shot off, the keeper knows exactly where you're going and unrealistically can make the save nearly every time. So essentially your opponent gets rewarded when they otherwise shouldn't because they got beat, right? And they would have gotten scored on. So if this works properly, it is another great improvement that falls in line with the overall theme of fixing that inconsistent, delayed gameplay.
Shooting angles, rebalance animation restrictions to enable shooting to cover a broader range of angles, low-driven additions, and time finishing removal. Due to the changes to low-driven, time finishing has been removed. In general, we felt time finishing didn't add meaningful skill depth and proved difficult to balance. Yeah, the skill in your game is actually breaking down opponents if you're actually using football IQ. That's the actual skill, not this whole cutback meta that people think that they're actually good at the game for doing.
Now, we already talked about low-driven shots replacing time finishing when you double-tap the shoot button. Now, it's a low-driven shot with all your shots except for the chip shot, of course. With that being said, I wanted to point out and really stress what he said. Football, it's about breaking down your opponent. And in all these football games, these rats are finding ways around that. Other development companies like Konami are adding ways these rats can win without playing football. So at least EA Sports is going in the right direction.
Due to the changes to low-driven, time finishing has been removed. In general, we felt rewarded long-range shots and felt inconsistent in high-pressure moments. Removing it allows us to balance shooting to produce more consistent outcomes. This change allows for more skill differentiation through precision shooting, where timing, aim, power, yeah, this is like I said, right? Power control and shot selection helps build a more noticeable skill gap. So their times finishing is in precision. That's what it's going to be, right?
If you follow my channel and or my videos, you know I've said this time and time again. Precision shooting is a must. These players not using it, and especially the rats that would go for those same glitch angles that they green time with assisted shooting every single time. I always said it. They're going to go nowhere. And once they make precision shooting the norm, they're going to be in trouble. And now look, I cannot wait to see them suffer. And this is honestly another one of those situations like I just said. Anything these rats can exploit that is removed is a good thing. So kudos here to EA Sports, because all of these improvements are going to make the rats flee. More skill gap, less rats. Let's go.
While visually impressive and powerful, Trivela shots became overused by players across all positions, often leading to unrealistic and exploitable scoring patterns that you kept in the game the entire year and just decided to keep in the game the entire year because your publicity stunt is to make these massive changes for the new game, and you have to buy it to actually get that change. Even though Trivelas were overpowered in the first 2 months of the game, you just kept it in there because you want people to buy the new game. Let's be completely honest. Game changer playstyle. Trivela shots can only be performed by players with this playstyle or playstyle plus. If a player doesn't have the game changer playstyle or playstyle plus, attempting a Trivela shot will be default to a lace shot instead. Attacking and defensive positioning, you've been asking us to increase fluid attacking movement while also having a logical defensive structure for a more fun and dynamic match. Our goal in FC26 is to make your teammates' positioning more flexible, regardless of role, allowing them to make more runs and provide you with supporting options as you progress up the pitch. Attacking positioning. Player supports reevaluate the positioning logic to provide better supporting options for the ball carrier, trying to always have someone available as a passing option. Attacking runs made several changes to the attacking runs logic.
So this is another huge improvement, which plays into what I've been saying with eFootball FC, Inception. I've heard him say it several times. The player roles, the play styles for the team, all of it limits the players, limits the team, and it is unrealistic. You need to have more freedom for the players. You need to have their player IDs because these are superstar players and legendary players. You need to have that matter more than these restrictive play styles and player roles and whatnot. So this at least is a movement in that direction. Is it a total fix? Absolutely not, because there's still all the playstyles and player roles and all that, which will always be restrictive. For instance, complete freedom would be allowing a poacher to also be an advanced forward, allowing attacking wingback to also be a defensive fullback, because within a game, different scenarios call for different movements from that player. And then how they work in those different scenarios would depend on that player ID, attributes, whatever. But as long as you have these player roles, play styles, playstyle pluses, player role plus, whatever, the game is going to be restrictive as a whole, and it's not realistic football. However, besides these improvements that Inception is talking about right now, you also have in FC the ability to manually control your runs. I know Inception talks about not liking player lock because of how it works. However, with these restrictive roles or restrictive movement, you absolutely need L1, R1, as well as player lock to manually manipulate the movement of your players until they go in the direction that I said. So, absolutely a positive move, but we still need more.
Physicality, protecting this is an interesting one. Player marking, because you know why?
I'll go ahead and interject and tell you why. Because, especially defensively, because now there's physicality with attackers, with dribbling and stuff, but particularly with defending. No more awkward defenders watching as a player shoots the ball and potentially scores when they could have made a play on the ball. EA Sports has filled that gap now. If a defender is nearby and they can make a play, there are now animations where the player, the defender in particular, will aggressively make a play on the ball, whether it's sliding in to block the shot or making a lunging tackle. No more watching highlights where your defender is standing like literally an inch away from the ball, watching it get shot right by him. This is a huge improvement that will absolutely be game-changing. Obviously, we have to see how it works, but based on what we're seeing, this as well as the new marking, both huge changes, huge improvements for defense. So let's hear more.
This part. You see what I'm saying? That's really good. Listen, people will see, park the bus. No. You have to make your attacking AI good. If someone is parking the bus, your attacking AI has to be overpowered in the sense of actual authentic movements. Not, I do a cutback, so now I'm going to create the space. You congesting the midfield like this is not a bad thing, because from the passing options that you see here, right? First of all, you can cross the ball. And from what I'm seeing here, the distance between the defender and when he crosses the ball is too much. So this is an actual valid way of scoring, but this is probably going to be an overpowered way of scoring. I'm thinking that this is like a double tap cross button into like a driven cross, and then it's just going to be really effective. So you can never basically give this space. But I don't mind this Because what you're seeing, right, is you actually do have to occupy the space because this is genuinely the only attacking option that he has. So for you to not overcommit this running space here is stupid, because if he were to cut back right here, right, he only has this guy to work with here, but there's not really much else for him to work with afterwards, right?
So you see here, this is a perfect example of the defensive improvements. Even though that was a great goal and that's a valid way to score, if that defender closes down that passing lane, which he could have easily overcommitted, as Inception said, then the dribbler now has nowhere to go. In FC25, the marking is abysmal, and so as the player dribbles, takes a line, and plays a cutback pass, an attacker or multiple attackers are almost always open for the easy shot and goal. And on the offensive side, the physicality improvements include better shielding either while dribbling or in the air as well. When the ball's coming, there are now more tussles where a strong attacker can better use that strength, which absolutely is a tool. This is also going to help those bigger, more physical players be more useful, right? Typically speaking, in the past, if you're not a small, more agile player that is great at dribbling, you're not going to be useful. I used an example like Holland in the past. Wasn't a usable player, at least wasn't meta. Now, with better physicality on both defense and the attack, more animations, more tools to use, these bigger players, or at least stronger players, even if they aren't the biggest, right? Because sometimes smaller, stronger players as well, i.e. some of the women, are going to be extremely useful, depending on how this stuff works in game.
Other physics changes, we've spent a lot of time ensuring that we reduce physics-based frustration scenarios that could sometimes occur. Jumping over fallen players will now be much more reliable and effective. Players getting stuck together when stumbling will be moved to the side to allow them to detach and continue play. When trying to avoid other players who make them more slippery, this is so that player avoidance doesn't cause players to get stuck under. Okay, cool. First touch responsiveness, significantly improve responsiveness of first touch ball control to seamlessly transition into dribbling right after the contact with the ball. Yeah, that's what we saw in the trailer when we were looking at it before. Ball control, interceptions, and composure. Ball control, interception, and composure actually makes a lot of sense for that. So if your first touch sucks, but you have good interceptions, and it might not be as smooth of a transition. Flick ups, improved flicking actions when receiving an aerial ball in all directions to be more consistent and predictable. Consecutive flick ups will progressively become less effective to prevent exploits. Yeah, of course. Loose and contested ball, player urgency, new ability to increase players' urgency when attempting to reach a loose ball or contested ball by pressing sprint. Holding sprints prompts immediate acceleration towards the contact point. With the sprint inputs, the response might be less immediate.
Now, a lot of what was just said, we have to see and feel for ourselves in game, right? We could talk about it till the sun comes up. It all may sound good, but until we get in the game and test everything out, we won't know if it is good or not, if it has made the game better or not.
Online and general gameplay responsiveness. Our goal is to make the game more consistent and to continue investigating community feedback related to online/offline responsiveness via the Gameplay Responsiveness Initiative. You know what? At least they changed it. I am very bitter about them taking so long and just honestly not believing me, to be honest with you, right? But they've already made a notes. Okay, because here's the thing, right? Because that post was even shared on Reddit, right? Guys, them confirming this in a post like this isn't the first confirmation of that being an issue. The first confirmation was my third visit to the studios to try to individually fix this individual issue. That's why when I mentioned in that post, it was the first 2 visits, but the third one was specifically to fix this. So just that was the confirmation that there was a problem with the general gameplay responsiveness. Okay? Problem is that when we did the tests over there, they were doing it online. They weren't doing it during different parts of the day at a different setup. That's why when I was there, I was like, I mentioned, I'm like, the way you guys are doing this test doesn't make sense for how you're going to fix this issue. Maybe that's what led to them saying, oh, we're going to have to do it at people's setups and stuff. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it wasn't. I don't care, right?
So Inception is very passionate about this, which I love because this is a huge deal. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Forget about the game. Forget about everything we've talked about up to this point, what we talk about after. If the game is still inconsistent, lagging all the time, if 4 out of 5 games, which is what I've been getting recently, are basically unplayable, because you're so delayed with your commands. You enter something, you had to wait, you could eat a sandwich before it goes through. I mean, you could barely play the game, and if you do, it is pointless because everyone's going to beat you. I mean, it doesn't matter. You could beat an opponent 6-7 nothing with normal gameplay, and when there is bad gameplay, they will destroy you. When you have that much delay, it's nearly impossible. So even when you do overcome it, which I have on stream, winning several tournaments, right? The PlayStation tournaments for the 100, FC points. I've won several, like 17 to be exact, because you know how many points you have, obviously. With that said, not one game of those 17 tournaments was fun. Not one game that I've won with that terrible gameplay was fun. And add in the fact that most of the time you're losing because you can't even play football. I mean, forget about the results. Just the football that you have to play, or the lack thereof, that's the problem. And the fact that Inception tried to bring this issue to them for years, I mean, of course, that pisses me off because I'm dealing with this now, and so are a ton of people across the world. If they would have just listened, it could have been fixed. Going to the studio 3 times, stressing this problem. And I guess it was either they didn't, like Inception said, believe them, or they just said, oh, we can't fix this, but we can't tell everyone, then our numbers will drop drastically. Now, it looks like they either A, finally found a solution, so they're bringing it to the forefront, or B, they were forced to find a solution because finally enough players were talking about this, and talking about this is the reason they're leaving the game. I can tell you for myself, if the inconsistent gameplay continues into FC26, I will not be playing anymore, right? They happened to bring it up on like the final straw. If I wasn't a content creator, I wouldn't have even touched the game after I left in December. So let's hope they get it right this time. Otherwise, I guarantee there are a ton of players around the world, like I said, just like me, that are going to leave and nobody will come back. And then that's another football game that we just can't enjoy. However, they're saying all the right things, but that only goes so far. We have to actually get the game, play it, and see for ourselves. All the stuff Inception's talking about right now, and that he's been talking about, he'll even tell you it's just words until we actually test it out. So let's go over with Inception some of the biggest improvements EA Sports has made for FC26, because since the gameplay deep dive video, which is more of a gameplay highlight video, like I said earlier, I've been impressed enough to raise my grade from what it was before. Now, not completely shocked with all the improvements, because much of this I have to actually test out when I get the game, but what I've heard so far, I can't be mad at, that's for sure.
All goalkeeper deflections try to get away from the danger, reduce tackle, block, interceptions bouncing back on your opponent, less AI defending resulting in looser defensive lines, fewer auto tackles and auto blocks, redesigned fatigue feature, more responsive and smoother transition in and out of specific animations, increased passing speed and responsiveness, tighter control and more speed while dribbling, and skill moves are faster, increased variability on crosses to favor player skill over repetitive wide play.
And just a quick side note in case I skipped over it by mistake, skill moves are now reduced to just a simplified flick of the right stick, which reminds me of Smart Assist over in eFootball, the dumbest feature I've ever seen, but in Smart Assist, the AI does everything for you. If all EA Sports has done here is simplify the moves, it will be okay. However, this is absolutely something rats can exploit, because we've always had skill spammers, right? But they would always have to learn the skill moves, which is a skill on the sticks in itself, right? However, if you simplify the skill moves down to just a flick of the right stick and the best move for that scenario is chosen, a bunch of low skill rats that are too lazy to learn the moves will now be able to just spam moves up and down the pitch, getting their Vinny Juniors and whoever else to easily do skill moves and hope that it helps them. Let's hope EA Sports has thought about this, and let's hope maybe this easy skill move thing, this simplified skill moves with the flick of the right stick, maybe it's only for, offline modes, or maybe it's not for champs, only friendly mode. I don't know, but it is exploitable. We will just have to pay attention to this and see where it goes for sure. I was definitely surprised to see that, it definitely has eFootball Smart Assist vibes, which is not a good thing.
Increased variability in corner kick outcomes with fewer attacking players involved by default, less authentic visuals when avoiding a ball to resolve those situations more effectively. Players get up quickly after being tackled to the ground. That's a very important one. I hate when they just stay down there. So stupid. Players show no reaction animation when hit by a fast incoming ball. Good. It's irrelevant too. Note that while some of the effects above were mentioned in the fundamental section, these were increased, tuned up for competitive gameplay. We also created a new UT competitive camera that is exclusive to the Ultimate Team stadiums.
Now, I like the message this shares, right? I'm not sure if I'd use this camera or not because it shows too much of the stadium. I'm all for showing more of the pitch while staying close enough to be able to defend like you have to, right? In 1v1 situations, if you're too far away, it can mess up the angles that you're seeing. So you have to be close enough, but you still want to see enough of the pitch. That's where that perfect angle can come in handy. Maybe once I get this on my monitor, it will look better, but from first glance, I feel like it's just too much screen wasted on the stadium. However, the reason why I like the message is because these are the types of things that show that they're making changes for the player base. Same with this high contrast mode. This helps a ton. Anytime there's uniform clashes or whatever else that causes issues, which is the worst, right? We've all been there before. But these kinds of things that help the players out, you love to see it. And when EA Sports is showing that they're going in this direction, maybe it's just because of FC25 being the biggest disaster in the franchise history, or even if it is because of that, maybe they finally realize we have to change our ways. We have to be for the players that actually spend their money. Otherwise, we're nothing. I mean, it's the truth. So however they got there, I'm fine with it. Let's just hope they keep going in this direction.
We've heard from our players that the playstyles available in FC25 are not balanced. So this year, we've acted on that feedback, rebalancing some existing playstyles in order to make them more equal with the rest. Player attributes versus playstyles. Playstyles bring player personality and unique abilities to light, but we heard the feedback loud and clear. The gap between top tier attributes and playstyles effects was too wide. In many cases, high rated players without playstyles were underperforming on core mechanics. Yeah, you had team of the season players this year that were complete trash. Not complete trash, but like Mbappe team of the season wasn't that good.
So this ties into what I was talking about with the restrictive nature of playstyles and player roles and stuff like that, right? This is all part of EA Sports' way to get us to keep wanting the next promo player, right? To keep moving to the next player, keep maybe spending money on packs to get the next player because the initial player won't have that playstyle or that player role you need. It's nonsense, and it got so bad this year that players, you heard what he said, even Mbappe, a top Mbappe card, wasn't even performing good. So think of all the other players. Hopefully they fix that nonsense.
New playstyle plus remove playstyles. We have removed the following playstyles and reworked their mechanics to the new ones above: Power Header, Aerial, Trivela, and Flare. Aerial Fortress, who has it? A defensive player who dominates aerial battles only in defensive scenarios.
For those of you who know of eFootball, then you know they stole this right from eFootball. If you don't know, this is totally an eFootball, what they call Showtime skill, which is limited to only certain players that you have to spend a ton of money for. But without a doubt, theirs is called Aerial Fort. But they also have a Fortress, so they just basically took two different names from eFootball and then essentially added the Aerial Fort role here.
This reconfigures the former Aerial playstyle to give it a more defensive focus. Yeah, because Aerial was both attacking and defensive. Interesting. Gameplay effects: performs higher jumps and has physical defensive presence before and during aerial duels. Perform even higher jumps. Precision header. Offensive player who specializes in controlled accurate headers rather than just raw power. Towards the goal, refined from power with more focus on aerial battles and heading accuracy. Performs headers with increase.
So this is another Showtime skill in eFootball. Theirs is called Bullet Header. Basically, they split up the powerful aerial players defensively and offensively. Now, Inception brings up a great point. What if you're great at both? That's the restrictive nature I'm talking about. In eFootball, I mean, Pele, they released him, and for his initial release, they gave him 2 Showtime skills, but the rest, to my knowledge, I'm newer to eFootball, don't have more than one Showtime skill. It's the silliest thing in the world. You can be great at winning headers defensively, right? And scoring headers on crosses, corners, whatever. Other areas too. You can have more than one skill, but typically speaking, players have one. You could even have 3, 4, 5. Restrictive nature of these skills, roles, playstyles, whatever you want to call them, ridiculous.
Inventive, who has a player specializing in creating passing, combining with refining to floor flair and Trivella playstyles. A player who is known for extraordinary and unconventional finishes, combining and redefining the form of flair and Trivella playstyles. Game changer. You can give this to like Modric, Lamine Yamal, Quaresma, number 1. Probably Luis Figo too. Luis Figo is really good at Trivellas too. Enforcer, a physical attacker who takes control through shielding when initiating contact while dribbling.
So I alluded to this earlier, but I believe Ibrahimovic sparked this focus on making the bigger physical players more powerful in game, right? Which I'm good with because for the longest time, these players were virtually unusable. Hopefully, this will help them compete, but in a different way with the smaller, more agile, better dribblers. Now, believe it or not, we are at the end of this pitch notes breakdown. This has been extremely in-depth, so thank you to EA Sports for that. They definitely did a good job here. And thank you to the legend himself, Inception, for sharing with us his first take on all of this. Now, you have everything you need to know if you're on the fence about buying the game, if you just want to have everything prepared mentally for what to expect with FC26, you now have that. And we aren't even done yet. There are 2 more areas in which I want to focus. First and foremost, I want to go into the link provided in this video where EA Sports breaks down the entire study and tests and all that stuff that they did for the inconsistent gameplay. As I've said a million times, the game, no matter how good it is pointless if they don't fix that. So I'm going to deep dive into that. I also am going to be going into the tactics side that EA Sports broke down and Inception also broke down in this video. However, I wanted to break it up because it's another separate deep dive. I mean, there's a lot of detail in it. So go ahead, rest your brain once you digest everything we went into. Please make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you join my Discord. The link is in the YouTube bio. A great community full of great people talking real football, all the football games. Make sure you join, and I will see you on the next one. Peace out.